Thanksgiving 2025 brought a shock. President Trump, speaking to U.S. troops, announced a major escalation in the fight against Venezuelan drug networks. He declared, "We'll be starting to stop them by land also. The land is easier, but that's going to start very soon." This marked a dramatic shift from maritime operations to potential ground strikes inside Venezuela. The announcement, made during a holiday call, bypassed traditional channels and sent ripples through diplomatic and military circles. For months, the U.S. had focused on intercepting drug shipments at sea, but now the fight was moving to Venezuelan soil. The prospect of American forces operating on foreign land raised urgent questions about sovereignty, international law, and the risk of direct conflict with Maduro's military. Trump's off-the-cuff style left little doubt. The U.S. was preparing to target drug networks at their source, deep inside Venezuela. This reframed the U.S. approach from counter-narcotics to something resembling military intervention. Military experts warned that ground operations would be far riskier and more complex than maritime actions. The risks included U.S. casualties, civilian harm, and unpredictable political fallout. The Thanksgiving announcement was more than a policy shift. It was a challenge to Venezuela and a test of American resolve in its own hemisphere. The world watched as the U.S. signaled a willingness to cross a dangerous new threshold. The message was clear: the era of limited engagement was over. The drug war had a new front, and it was about to get much more dangerous. The threat of land strikes followed months of deadly U.S. maritime operations in the Caribbean. Since September 2025, U.S. forces have destroyed at least 21 vessels linked to Venezuelan drug trafficking, killing over 80 people. These were not arrests, they were lethal strikes, justified by claims the boats were part of a narco-trafficking network. President Trump touted the success, claiming 85% of drug trafficking was stopped at sea, and credited advanced military assets for the results. But many experts argue these shipments were bound for Europe, not the U.S., raising questions about the true motive behind the campaign. Critics say the operation is less about protecting Americans and more about destabilizing Maduro's regime by cutting off illicit revenue. Human rights groups have condemned the use of deadly force, questioning its legality and proportionality. The shift from law enforcement to military action at sea set a dangerous precedent. Sinking boats and killing crews marked a fundamental change in U.S. engagement rules. This pattern of lethal force now frames the context for Trump's land strike announcement. The administration has shown it's willing to use deadly force, and is ready to bring that logic ashore. The stakes on land are far higher, with the risk of catastrophic miscalculation. The Caribbean campaign was just the beginning. Now, the world braces for what comes next. Operation Southern Spear is the military engine behind this new policy. The U.S. has deployed its largest force in the Caribbean in decades, centered on the USS Gerald R. Ford, America's newest aircraft carrier. The carrier is joined by a powerful strike group, including guided missile destroyers and a special operations ship. Elite units are on standby, ready for potential land strikes. Between 12,000 and 15,000 U.S. troops are now in the region, far more than needed for standard counter-narcotics missions. This force projects overwhelming power just off Venezuela's coast, a constant threat to Maduro's government. The buildup has been deliberate, giving the U.S. control of sea and air lanes and a dominant regional posture. Operation Southern Spear gives Trump options: continued maritime strikes, air attacks, or ground incursions. The deployment is both a practical tool and a psychological weapon, designed to intimidate and pressure the Maduro regime. The operation's name signals aggression, not peacekeeping. Neighboring countries like Colombia and Brazil are on edge, fearing regional instability. For Venezuela, the threat is ever present, a daily reminder of U.S. power poised to strike. The question is no longer if the U.S. can act, but when and where it will. The spear is ready. The world waits for the next move. The region holds its breath. The balance of power has shifted overnight. To justify its actions, the Trump administration has zeroed in on the Cartel de los Soles, a network it claims is run by Venezuela's top officials, including Maduro. On November 24, 2025, the U.S. designated the cartel a foreign terrorist organization, unlocking new sanctions and legal tools. This move reframes the conflict as a fight against terrorism, not just crime or a rogue state. Maduro's government calls the allegations a pretext for regime change and a grab for Venezuela's oil. The FTO label makes normal diplomacy nearly impossible and raises the stakes for any U.S. action. By branding the cartel as terrorists, the administration seeks to win public and congressional support for its aggressive strategy. The push for military action has sparked a fierce legal battle in Washington. Congress, not the president, holds the power to declare war, but the Trump administration is sidestepping these constraints. In classified briefings, officials admitted they lack solid legal grounds for land attacks, yet pressed forward. A senior Justice Department official later claimed the president didn't need congressional approval for lethal strikes, infuriating lawmakers. 13 Democratic senators demanded the legal rationale be made public, challenging the secrecy and the administration's broad interpretation of presidential power. This is more than a legal debate. It's a fight over who decides when America goes to war. Trump's Venezuela policy is a mix of hardline threats and sudden hints at diplomacy. He projects strength with military deployments and boasts of stopping drug flows, appealing to his base in an election year. The aggressive stance suggests war is inevitable, but Trump also leaves the door open to talks. When asked about speaking with Maduro, he replied, "I might talk to him. We'll see." This ambiguity is classic Trump, maximum pressure, but always a possible off-ramp. The dual approach keeps adversaries guessing and maximizes leverage. Is the buildup a prelude to invasion or a negotiating tactic? The answer remains uncertain, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As November ends, the crisis teeters on the edge. U.S. land strikes could trigger war with Venezuela, causing bloodshed, refugee flows, and regional chaos. The risk of miscalculation is enormous. A single mistake could ignite a wider conflict. Diplomacy remains possible. Trump could still negotiate with Maduro, offering sanctions relief for real reforms. The choice between escalation and negotiation rests with the president. The world watches, hoping for restraint. The fate of Venezuela and the region hangs in the balance. The coming days will reveal whether the Southern Spear strikes or persuades.